In the wide and endless galaxy, many powerful species ruled over stars, planets, and entire systems. Some were known for their strength. Others were feared for their advanced technology. A few were respected for their intelligence. Among all of them, there was one species that almost no one truly understood: humans. To most of the galaxy, humans were nothing special. They were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. Their technology was good, but not the best. And most importantly, they always chose peace. For many years, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council. It was a place where different species came together to discuss problems, make rules, and avoid war. Humans had joined with hope. They believed that cooperation would bring a better future for everyone. But things did not go as they expected. Whenever humans spoke in the council, they were polite. They listened more than they talked. They asked questions instead of making demands. Many other species saw this as weakness. They are too soft, some would say. They think talking can solve everything. Others laughed. Humans heard these words. They understood the looks. But they never argued. They never shouted. They stayed calm. On Earth, people worked quietly. They built cities, improved their science, and explored space at their own pace. Human ships traveled far, visiting new systems and making trade deals. They were careful and respectful. But behind this calm behavior, something else was happening. Human scientists were always learning. Every meeting in the council, every trade deal, every small conflict, they observed everything. They studied alien technologies, not by stealing but by understanding patterns, designs, and ideas. They watched how other species fought, how they defended, and how they made decisions. Nothing was ignored. In one of Earth's main command centers, a man named Daniel stood in front of a large screen. The screen showed different parts of the galaxy. Trade routes, colony locations, and military movements were all visible. Daniel was not a soldier. He was an analyst. His job was to understand what others could not see. They moved again, he said quietly. Next to him, another man named Armin looked at the screen. Another border shift? Daniel nodded.
Yes.
Small, but it is happening more often. Armin crossed his arms. And the council? They will discuss it, Daniel replied. And then they will do nothing. Armin sighed. This was not new. Small human colonies near the edges of space often faced pressure. Larger and stronger species would slowly push their borders, taking small areas bit by bit. It was not open war. It was something quieter. And because it was quiet, the council ignored it. Should we respond? Armin asked. Daniel looked at the screen for a long moment. Not yet. Not yet. Armin repeated. How long do we wait? Daniel did not answer immediately. His eyes moved across the data, studying every detail. We wait until we understand everything, he finally said. Far away from Earth, on a small human colony, life continued as normal. People worked, children played, and ships came and went. But even here, there was a feeling that something was not right. A group of human workers stood near a landing station, watching a large alien ship in the distance. They are closer than before, one of them said. They always come closer, another replied. Will the council stop them? The others stayed silent. Back on Earth, reports like this came every day. Small problems. Small changes. Nothing big enough to start a war. But together, they were forming a pattern. And humans were very good at seeing patterns. In secret labs and hidden stations, new projects were being developed. Not weapons of destruction, but systems of control, defense, and understanding. Humans were not preparing for war in the way others expected. They were preparing in their own way. Daniel stood alone later that night, looking at the stars through a large window. The galaxy looked peaceful from a distance. Beautiful.
Calm.
But he knew the truth. They think we are weak, Armin said as he walked in. Daniel gave a small smile. Let them think that. Armin looked at him carefully. And what are we really? Daniel's eyes returned to the stars. We are patient, he said. And in that patience, something powerful was growing, something no other species had noticed. Not yet. The galaxy was not a peaceful place, even though the Galactic Council often claimed it was. On paper there were rules. There were agreements. There were promises of fairness. But in reality, power decided everything. And humans did not show power. Because of that, the problems slowly grew. At first, it was only small things. Human cargo ships were stopped during travel. They were asked for extra checks, extra documents, and sometimes forced to wait for hours. Other species passed freely, but human ships were treated differently. It is just protocol, the officials would say. But everyone knew it was not. In one busy trade route near the outer systems, a human cargo ship floated quietly in space. Its engines were idle, and its lights were dim. Around it, 3 large alien ships blocked its path. Inside the human ship, a man named Ravi sat in the control room. His face was calm, but his eyes showed frustration. "They are delaying us again," one of his crew members said. "For what reason this time?" Ravi asked. "They say they need to scan the cargo again." Ravi leaned back in his chair. "They already scanned it 2 times. "I know," the crew member replied. "But they don't care." Outside, a message came through. "Human vessel, remain in position. Further inspection required." Ravi closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly. "Send them the documents again," he said. "You really think it will help?" the crew member asked. "No," Ravi answered honestly. "But we follow the rules." This was the human way. Even when others did not respect them, humans followed the system. They believed that staying calm was better than starting conflict. But not everyone agreed. Back on Earth, Armin stood in a meeting room with several other officials. The atmosphere was tense. "This is getting worse," Armin said. "Every week, we receive new reports. Delays, harassment, border pressure. How long do we ignore this?" One of the leaders spoke calmly. "We are not ignoring it. We are handling it through proper channels." "Proper channels?" Armin repeated. "The council does nothing." Another voice joined in. "If we act aggressively, we will only prove them right. They already think we are unstable." Armin shook his head. "No. They think we are weak." The room went quiet. Daniel, who was standing near the screen, finally spoke. "Both of you are correct," he said. "They think we are weak, and they expect us to react emotionally." Armin looked at him. "So, what do we do?" Daniel turned to the large display. It showed multiple systems where human colonies existed. Small red marks appeared near many of them. "These are not random events," Daniel explained. "They are testing us." "Testing?" someone asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "They push a little, then wait. If we do nothing, they push more." "And if we fight back?" Armin asked. "They will unite against us," Daniel replied. The room became silent again. The situation was more complicated than it seemed. Far away, on another human colony, things were even more direct. A group of alien soldiers stood near a human settlement. They did not attack, but their presence was clear. They watched everything. Their ships hovered in the sky, casting long shadows over the buildings. A young human boy looked up at one of the ships. "Why are they here?" he asked his father. The father hesitated before answering. "They're just watching." "Are they friends?" the boy asked. The father forced a small smile. "Not really." The truth was simple. These were not acts of war, but they were not peaceful either. They were insults. Slow, repeated, and impossible to ignore. Back in space, Ravi's ship was finally allowed to move after many hours. "Permission granted. You may proceed," the alien voice said. Ravi exhaled deeply. "About time." As the ship started moving, one of the crew members said quietly, "One day, we should stop asking for permission." Ravi looked out into space. "Maybe," he said, "but today is not that day." On Earth, Daniel stood once again in front of the stars. Reports continued to come in. More delays, more pressure, more silent attacks. Armin walked in and stood beside him. "It keeps happening," he said. Daniel nodded. "Yes." "And we keep waiting." "Yes." Armin looked at him carefully. "You really believe this is the right choice?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Patience is not weakness." "Then what is it?" Armin asked. Daniel's eyes did not move from the stars. "It is control," he said softly. But even as he said it, both of them knew something important. Patience has a limit. And somewhere, deep inside humanity, that limit was slowly getting closer. The problems did not stop. In fact, they became more frequent. Every day, new reports arrived on Earth. Some were small, some were serious, but all of them showed the same thing. Humanity was being pushed, again and again. Still, humanity followed the rules. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, representatives from many species sat in a wide circle. The room was massive, filled with lights and floating screens. Each species had its own section, its own space. Some looked calm, some looked bored. At the center, a human representative named Elias stood ready to speak. He was not loud. He was not aggressive. His voice was steady and clear. "We are here to report repeated violations against human colonies," Elias said. "Trade routes are being blocked. Ships are being delayed without reason. Borders are being slowly pushed into our space." A few representatives listened. Others did not even look at him. One alien leader leaned back in his seat. "These are small matters," he said. "No real harm has been done." Elias remained calm. Small actions repeated many times become a serious problem. Another voice spoke from across the hall. "Perhaps your colonies are placed too close to contested space." Elias shook his head slightly. "These systems are registered and approved by this council." The room grew quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed softly. "Humans worry too much," the voice said. "You see danger where there is none." Elias paused. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of different leaders. Some avoided his gaze. Some looked amused. "We are not asking for conflict," Elias continued. "We are asking for fairness." No one answered immediately. Finally, the council leader spoke. "We will review your concerns." Elias knew what that meant. It meant nothing would change. Back on Earth, Daniel watched the meeting through a live feed. Armin stood beside him, arms crossed tightly. "They don't care," Armin said. Daniel nodded slightly. "No, they don't. They didn't even try to hide it this time," Armin added. Daniel turned off the screen. "We expected this." Armin looked at him, frustrated. "Then why keep asking them?" Daniel walked slowly across the room. "Because every request, every warning, is being recorded." "Recorded?" Armin asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "We are showing them that we followed every rule." Armin frowned. "And what does that give us?" Daniel stopped and looked at him. "It gives us the truth." Far from Earth, in a quiet research station, human scientists worked day and night. Screens showed data from different parts of the galaxy. Ship movements, communication signals, energy patterns. Everything was being studied. A young scientist pointed at a display. "The same pattern again," she said. Her colleague nodded. "Yes." They increase pressure, then pause. Then again. "Like they are testing limits," she said. "Exactly," he replied. This was not random behavior. It was planned. Back in space, a small human patrol ship moved near a colony border. The crew was alert. They had received reports of unusual activity. Multiple ships detected. One of the crew members said. "Distance?" the captain asked. "Closing in slowly." The captain watched the screen carefully. The ships did not attack. They did not send messages. They only moved closer. "Hold position," the captain ordered. "Should we warn them?" another crew member asked. The captain hesitated. "Send a standard message." A signal was sent. "This is human space. State your purpose." No reply came. The alien ships stopped just outside the border. They stayed there, silent and unmoving. It was not an attack, but it was not peaceful either. Back on Earth, more red marks appeared on Daniel's screen. More colonies under pressure. More ships being watched. More silence from the council. Armin walked in quickly. "Another report just came in," he said. "Same situation. Different system." Daniel did not look surprised. "Add it to the list." Armin placed the report on the table. "The list is getting too long." Daniel finally looked at him. "Good." Armin blinked. "Good." Daniel nodded. "The more they ignore us, the clearer everything becomes." Armin shook his head. "I don't understand." Daniel walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They believe we will never act, he said. They think we will keep talking forever. And will we? Armin asked quietly. Daniel did not answer right away. After a long moment, he said, We are giving them every chance. Far away, on the edge of human space, the silent alien ships finally turned and left. No words, no conflict, just a quiet message left behind. A message that humans understood very well. Back in the command center, Daniel watched the data update in real time. Every movement was tracked. Every action recorded. They're not stopping, Armin said. No, Daniel replied. And the council will not help. No. Armin took a deep breath. Then what are we waiting for? Daniel's eyes stayed on the stars. For them to cross the line, he said. And when they do? Armin asked. This time, Daniel answered without hesitation. Then everything changes. For a long time, humanity had waited. They had watched every move, recorded every action, and followed every rule. They had trusted the system, even when the system failed them again and again. They had believed that patience would bring peace. But far away, on the edge of human space, something was about to change everything. The colony was small. It was not rich or powerful. It did not have strong defenses or large fleets. It was just a quiet place where people lived simple lives. Families worked, children played, and ships came and went with supplies. It was one of many human colonies. And like many others, it had already felt pressure before. A man named Iqbal stood outside a storage building, looking at the sky. He had lived on the colony for years. He knew the patterns. He knew when something felt wrong. And today, something felt very wrong. The sky was too quiet. Do you see that? A woman named Layla asked as she walked toward him. Iqbal nodded slowly. Yes. In the distance, small dark shapes appeared. At first, they looked like stars. But they were moving. Ships. More ships than usual. They are coming closer, Layla said, her voice tight with worry. Iqbal's face grew serious. Call the control station. Inside the colony's main control room, alarms began to sound softly. Operators moved quickly, checking systems and scanning space. Multiple vessels detected, one operator said. They are not responding to signals. Send another message, the station leader ordered. A signal was sent immediately. This is a human colony. State your purpose. Silence. The ships kept moving. Back outside, more people had gathered. They watched the sky as the shapes grew larger. Now everyone could see them clearly, large alien ships, moving in formation. Why are they not answering? Someone asked. No one had an answer. Inside the control room, tension filled the air. They are entering restricted space, an operator said. Any response? The leader asked. Nothing. The leader took a deep breath. Prepare emergency protocols. But sir, another operator said nervously, we don't have enough defenses. I know, the leader replied quietly. On Earth, Daniel was reviewing reports when a sudden alert appeared on his screen. His expression changed immediately. What is it? Armin asked, stepping closer. Daniel opened the live feed. Colony Delta 7, he said. Multiple unknown ships approaching. No communication. Armin's face hardened. Again? Daniel shook his head slightly. No, this is different. The feed showed the colony from orbit. The alien ships were now very close. Too close. Back on the colony, the ground shook slightly as the first ship moved directly overhead. Its shadow covered buildings and streets. People began to panic. What is happening? Someone shouted. Are they attacking? Still no message came. Inside the control room, the leader spoke quickly. Send distress signal to Earth. Now. The signal was sent. On Earth, Daniel watched as the alert flashed red. We are receiving a distress call, he said. Armin stepped forward. Send support. Daniel's eyes stayed on the screen. They won't reach in time. Before Armin could respond, the situation changed. On the screen, a bright flash appeared. Then another. And another. Back on the colony, everything turned to chaos. Explosions echoed across the land. Buildings collapsed. Fire spread quickly. People ran in every direction, trying to escape. "They are attacking," someone screamed. Iqbal grabbed Layla's hand. "We need to move." The sky was filled with light and destruction. The alien ships showed no mercy. There were no warnings, no demands, only attack. Inside the control room, systems began to fail. "We are losing power. Communication is down. Defense systems are offline." The leader tried to stay calm. "Keep sending the signal." But it was too late. On Earth, Daniel and Armin stood frozen as the live feed broke into static. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then a weak signal returned. A damaged camera showed the surface of the colony. Fires burned everywhere. Smoke covered the sky. The once peaceful place was now destroyed. A final voice came through the transmission. "This is Delta 7. We are under attack. No survivors likely." The voice cut off. The screen went dark. Armin stepped back slowly. No, Daniel did not move. His face was still, but his eyes had changed. The room around them was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. After a long moment, Armin looked at Daniel. "Say something," he said quietly. Daniel finally took a breath. "They crossed the line," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Armin felt a chill. "What happens now?" Daniel turned away from the dark screen and looked out at the stars. For years, humanity had waited. For years, they had been patient. But that patience was gone. Now, something else was taking its place. "We stop waiting," Daniel said. And for the first time, there was no doubt in his voice. Something had ended, and something far more dangerous had just begun. The news of the destroyed colonies spread across human space in hours. At first, people did not believe it. A full attack, without warning, without reason, it did not feel real. But the reports kept coming. The images were clear. The silence from the colony said everything. Delta 7 was gone. On Earth, cities grew quiet. No celebrations, no loud voices, no public anger. It was not chaos. It was something deeper. People stayed inside their homes, watching the news, waiting for answers. Families who had loved ones on the colony sat in silence, hoping for any sign of survival. But none came. In the main command center, the atmosphere had completely changed. There was no confusion anymore. No debates. No arguments. Only focus. Daniel stood in front of the large screen, watching data flow in from every part of human space. Fleet movements, colony status, communication lines, everything was being updated in real time. Armin entered the room quickly. "All outer colonies are now on high alert," he said. "Evacuations have started in the most exposed systems." Daniel nodded. "Good. Keep them moving." Armin looked around the room. Dozens of officers were working silently. No one spoke loudly. No one wasted time. "This feels different," Armin said quietly. Daniel did not look at him. "Because it is." For years, every decision had been slow and careful. Every action was discussed, debated, and approved by many levels of command. Now, decisions were being made in seconds. "What about the council?" Armin asked. Daniel paused for a moment. Then he said, "We are no longer waiting for them." Armin watched him closely. "So, no more reports? No more requests?" Daniel turned to face him. "No more explanations." At that same moment, a message was sent from Earth to every human-controlled system. It was short, simple, clear. All diplomatic channels are suspended until further notice. Across the galaxy, this message created confusion. In the Galactic Council, leaders gathered quickly. "What does this mean?" one of them asked. "Are humans preparing for war?" another said. "They would not dare," a third voice added. But there was something different this time. Humans were not responding. No messages. No meetings. No statements. Just silence. Back on Earth, the silence was not empty. It was full of activity. Deep underground, hidden facilities came to life. Systems that had never been used before were activated. Ships that had never been seen left their stations quietly. These were not normal fleets. They were faster, smarter, built with years of careful planning. In one large hangar, A group of officers stood watching as a massive ship powered up for the first time. Its surface was smooth and dark. No visible weapons. No markings. "What is that?" a young officer asked. Armin stood beside him. "Something we hoped we would never need." The ship lifted slowly, without sound, and disappeared into the sky. Far away, in deep space, human fleets began to move. But not in the way others expected. They did not gather in large, visible groups. They did not travel through known routes. Instead, they moved quietly, spreading out across different systems. It was like a shadow moving through the galaxy. Daniel watched every movement from the command center. "Phase 1 is complete," an officer reported. "Good," Daniel replied. "Continue." Armin stepped closer. "You planned all of this for how long?" Daniel looked at the screen. "For as long as we have been part of the council." Armin's eyes widened slightly. "All this time, we were preparing?" Daniel nodded. "We were learning." "Learning what?" Armin asked. Daniel's voice was calm. "How everyone thinks. How everyone fights. And how everyone fails." At the edge of human space, the same alien faction that had attacked Delta 7 continued their normal operations. Their ships moved confidently, as if nothing had changed. They believed there would be no consequences. They believed humans would complain, send reports, and wait. Just like always. But something was already different. Their long-range scanners began to show strange signals. Weak at first, then stronger. "Unidentified readings detected," one of their officers said. "Source?" their commander asked. "Unknown." The commander frowned. "Probably nothing. Continue operations." The officer nodded, but something did not feel right. Back on Earth, Daniel stood once again in front of the stars. But this time, there was no hesitation in his eyes. Armin stood beside him. "Once we start," he said quietly, "there is no going back." Daniel nodded. "I know. And you're sure this is the only way?" Daniel was silent for a moment. Then he said, "They made it the only way." The room behind them remained busy, filled with quiet movement and focused minds. Everything was ready. For years, humanity had been patient. They had waited, observed, and endured. Now they were done waiting. And across the galaxy, no one truly understood what was about to happen. Because the most dangerous thing about humanity was never their strength. It was how long they were willing to stay silent before they used it. The galaxy was still confused. For days, humanity had said nothing. No messages. No warnings. No threats. Just silence. Many species believed it was fear. They thought humans had finally understood their place. They were wrong. Far out in space, near one of the main routes used by the aggressor faction, a large fleet moved in formation. Dozens of ships traveled together, strong and confident. They had done this many times before, control space, show power, and remind others who was in charge. Inside the lead ship, the commander sat calmly. "Any response from human space?" he asked. A nearby officer shook his head. "No communication at all." The commander gave a small smile. "As expected, they have learned," another officer said. "Better to stay quiet than fight." The commander nodded. "Good. It saves us time." But at that exact moment, something changed. A soft sound echoed through the control room. Beep. One of the officers looked at his screen. "Sir, we are detecting something." "What is it?" the commander asked. "Unknown signal. Very faint." "From where?" The officer hesitated. "Everywhere." The room became quiet. "Explain," the commander said, his voice now serious. "It is not coming from one direction," the officer replied. "It is surrounding us." Before anyone could react, the lights flickered. Just once. Then everything went back to normal. "Check systems," the commander ordered. "Engines are fine. Weapons online. Shield stable." Everything looked normal. Too normal. Then suddenly, all screens went black. "What just happened?" someone shouted. "System failure. Trying to restart." The commander stood up. "Now." But it was already too late. Across the entire fleet, the same thing happened. Ships that had been moving perfectly just seconds ago suddenly stopped. Engines shut down. Weapons became unresponsive. Communication systems failed completely. They were not destroyed. They were frozen. Outside, space looked calm, silent. Nothing moved. Inside the ships, chaos had begun. We have no control. Engines not responding. Weapons offline. The commander clenched his fists. This is an attack. But from where? An officer asked in panic. There was no answer. Because there were no enemy ships. No visible weapons. Nothing. Then, slowly, the main screen flickered back to life. A single line of text appeared. Humanity has responded. The room went silent. Back on Earth, Daniel stood in the command center, watching multiple screens at once. Each one showed a different fleet, a different location. And on every screen, the result was the same. Stopped ships. Silent systems. Complete control. First wave successful. An officer reported. Daniel nodded. Any resistance? None, the officer replied. They don't understand what is happening. Armin stood nearby, staring at the screens. We didn't destroy them, he said quietly. No, Daniel replied. We didn't need to. Armin looked at him. What did we do? Daniel's eyes stayed on the data. We removed their ability to act. Far away, another fleet from the same faction experienced the same attack. Then another. And another. Everywhere their ships were located, the same invisible force reached them. No explosions. No fire. Just silence. Within hours, one of the strongest factions in that region of space had lost control of its entire fleet. Not a single shot was fired. In the Galactic Council, panic began to spread. What is happening? One leader demanded. We are receiving reports from multiple systems, another said. Entire fleets have gone offline. How is that possible? No one knows. Is it a virus? A weapon? Then someone said the word no one expected. Humans. The room went quiet. That is impossible, one leader said quickly. They don't have this kind of power. But the reports continued. More fleets disabled. More systems failing. And always the same message appearing on screens. Humanity has responded. Back on one of the disabled ships, the commander stared at the message in disbelief. This cannot be, he whispered. His fleet, once powerful and feared, was now nothing more than floating metal in space. He had no control. No weapons. No way to escape. For the first time, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Back on Earth, the command center remained calm. No cheering. No celebration. Only focus. Armin looked at Daniel again. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Daniel nodded slowly. Yes. Armin took a deep breath. And what happens next? Daniel turned slightly, his expression cold and steady. Now they listen, he said. Across the galaxy, every species watched in shock. The humans they had ignored, the humans they had insulted, the humans they believed were weak, had just stopped an entire fleet without firing a single shot. And the most terrifying part was not the attack itself. It was how easy it looked. The galaxy had seen war before. It had seen planets burn, fleets collide, and entire species fall. War was usually loud, fast, and full of destruction. Power was shown through fire and force. But what humanity was doing now was different. There were no massive explosions, no long battles, no clear front lines, only control. After the first strike, more fleets began to fall silent. Not destroyed, just stopped. Ships from the aggressor faction drifted in space, unable to move, unable to fight, unable to even send proper messages. It spread like a shadow, system by system, route by route. Back on Earth, Daniel stood in front of a new set of data. Large sections of space were slowly turning blue on the map, areas now under human control. Phase 2 is active, an officer reported. Armin looked at the screen. We're not just stopping fleets, he said. We're cutting them off. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Trade routes once controlled by the aggressors were now blocked. Communication networks were interrupted. Navigation systems began to fail. Ships that tried to move through certain areas suddenly lost direction. Some turned back. Others stopped completely. No one understood how. In one distant system, An alien cargo convoy attempted to escape through a side route. It was not a military fleet, just supply ships trying to avoid the chaos. Set course, the lead pilot said. We move fast and quiet. The ships jumped into motion. For a few minutes, everything worked. Then suddenly, navigation error. Coordinates lost. Systems not responding. The ships slowed down, drifting in space. What is happening? The pilot shouted. Then the screen flickered. A message appeared. Route restricted. The pilot stared at it in shock. Restricted? By who? There was no answer. Back in the Galactic Council, the situation had become serious. This is not an attack, one leader said nervously. This is control. They are taking over entire regions without fighting, another added. But how? Someone asked. No one had an answer. For years, humans had been quiet. No one had truly studied them. No one had taken them seriously. Now it was too late. Back on Earth, Armin walked beside Daniel through a secure hallway. You are controlling space itself, Armin said. Daniel shook his head slightly. Not space. Systems. Armin frowned. What does that mean? Daniel stopped and turned to him. Every ship, every station, every route, they all depend on systems. Navigation, communication, energy. Armin's eyes widened slightly. And we understand those systems better than anyone. Daniel nodded. We had time to learn. Far away, on one of the disabled command ships, the alien commander sat in silence. His fleet was still frozen. His systems were still dead. He looked around the control room. His crew was quiet, waiting, unsure. Then suddenly one system came back online. Sir, an officer shouted. We have partial control. The commander stood up quickly. Weapons. Still offline. Engines. Not responding. Communication. Limited but working. Before the commander could speak again, a message appeared on the screen. This time it was different. Not just text. A live transmission. A human figure appeared, calm, still, and focused. It was Daniel. You are not under attack, Daniel said clearly. You are being contained. The commander stared at the screen. Contained, he repeated. You crossed into human space, Daniel continued. You destroyed a civilian colony. This is the result. The commander tried to stay strong. Release our systems immediately, he demanded. Daniel's expression did not change. No. The room went silent. You do not have the authority, the commander began. Daniel interrupted him. Authority is not given. It is taken. The commander froze. For years, humanity followed your rules, Daniel said. We waited. We asked. We warned. And now, the commander asked quietly. Daniel's eyes were steady. Now we act. The transmission ended. Back in the council, reports continued to flood in. Entire regions were now under human control. Ships could not move without permission. Routes were no longer free. For the first time in a long time, the powerful species of the galaxy felt something new. Limits. Back on Earth, Armin stood beside Daniel once again, watching the map change. This is not war, Armin said slowly. Daniel looked at him. No. This is something else. Daniel nodded. This is control, he said. Across the galaxy, one thing became clear. Humans were not fighting like anyone else. They were not trying to destroy their enemies. They were taking away their ability to fight at all. And that was far more terrifying, because in this new kind of war, there was no escape, and no one was prepared for it. The galaxy had changed. Not slowly, not over years, but in just a few days. Where there was once confidence, there was now uncertainty. Where there was once control, there was now silence. Entire regions of space had become quiet, not because of peace, but because nothing could move. And everyone knew why. Humans, the same species that had once been ignored, was now the center of every conversation. In the Galactic Council, the atmosphere was tense. Leaders who once spoke with pride now spoke carefully. No one laughed anymore. No one made jokes about humanity. Instead, they asked questions. How far does their control reach? Can they affect our systems too? Are we next? No one had answers. One of the council members stood up. We need to contact them, he said. We must understand their intentions. Another leader shook his head. We have already tried. They are not responding. Then we keep trying, the first one insisted. We cannot sit here and wait. But that was exactly what they were doing. Waiting. Because for the first time, they were not in control. Far away, in a neutral system, a group of traders had gathered. Their ships remained still, afraid to move through restricted routes. Supplies were running low. Tension was rising. A pilot sat inside his ship, staring at the empty space ahead. I am not moving, he said. Another voice came through the communication channel. We have to. We cannot stay here forever. And go where? The first pilot replied. Every route is blocked. Not all of them. Do you want to test that? The pilot asked. There was no reply. Everyone had heard the stories. Ships that tried to pass without permission stopped. Fleets that tried to fight back frozen. No one wanted to be next. Back on one of the controlled command ships, the alien commander sat in silence. His systems were partially working now, but not enough to escape. Not enough to fight. He looked at the latest reports. More fleets disabled. More systems under human control. They are everywhere, one of his officers said quietly. The commander nodded slowly. And we never saw it coming. For the first time, he understood something important. Humans had not become powerful overnight. They had always been preparing. Back on Earth, the command center was calm, just like before. Daniel stood in front of a large map. More areas had turned blue. Phase 3 is progressing, an officer reported. Armin looked at the data. There is no resistance, he said. Daniel nodded. Because they don't know how to resist. Armin crossed his arms. And what happens when they figure it out? Daniel was silent for a moment. They won't, he said. Armin looked at him carefully. You are very sure. Daniel's voice remained steady. Because we are not fighting them in a way they understand. Far away, in another system, a powerful species prepared its fleet. They had not been directly attacked, but they had seen what happened to others. And they were afraid. We cannot wait, their leader said. If humans can control systems, then we must act before they reach us. What do you suggest? An officer asked. We strike first. The fleet began to move. Ships powered up, weapons activated, and engines roared to life. They moved toward a nearby human-controlled route. Full speed, the leader ordered. For a moment, everything worked. Then, system warning. Energy fluctuation detected. What is happening? The leader shouted. One by one, their ships began to slow down. Weapons powered off. Navigation failed. Communication broke apart into static. The fleet stopped, just like all the others. On the main screen, a message appeared. Do not advance. The leader stared at it in shock. They were ready, he whispered. Back in the Galactic Council, panic was no longer hidden. They can reach anyone, one leader said. There is no safe zone, another added. We underestimated them. A third voice said quietly. That was the truth. For years, humans had been seen as weak because they chose peace. But now, everyone understood something far more dangerous. Peace had been a choice, not a limitation. Back on Earth, Armin stood beside Daniel once again. They are scared, Armin said. Daniel did not look surprised. They should be. Armin hesitated. Is this what we wanted? Daniel looked at the map, now almost fully under human influence in key areas. No, he said. Then what did we want? Armin asked. Daniel's eyes remained fixed on the screen. We wanted them to stop, he said. Across the galaxy, fear continued to spread. Not because of destruction, but because of control. Because no one knew how far it could go. No one knew if they could escape it. And most importantly, no one knew what humanity would do next. The galaxy was no longer loud. It had become quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of silence that comes before something big. Every species felt it. Every leader noticed it. Every system watched in fear. And all eyes were now on humanity. On Earth, the command center was working at full speed. Screens showed live data from across multiple regions. Ships, stations, fleets, everything was being tracked and controlled with precision. But this time, something different was happening. A message was being prepared. Daniel stood in the center of the room. Around him, officers worked carefully, making sure every detail was correct. This was not just another report. This was a statement. Armin stood nearby, watching quietly. "This is it," he said. "We are finally speaking." Daniel nodded. "Yes." "After all this time," Armin added. Daniel finished the thought. "They will hear the truth." Across the galaxy, every communication channel began to open. Systems that had been blocked or restricted started receiving a single signal. It spread slowly, system by system, fleet by fleet, council by council. Every screen that could receive it began to flicker. Then, the message appeared. At first, it was just text. Then a voice. Then a face. Daniel stood on the screen, calm and steady. His voice was clear. "From this moment forward, humanity will speak once," he said. The message reached the Galactic Council instantly. Leaders sat up straight. This was the first time in days that humans had sent a direct message to everyone. Daniel continued. "For years, humanity has followed your rules," he said. "We joined your council. We respected your systems. We answered your calls. We followed your laws." The room remained silent as his words echoed. "We reported violations. We asked for protection. We gave you time." Daniel paused for a moment. "And what did you do?" No one answered. "You ignored us." His voice remained calm, but there was something firm beneath it. "You dismissed our reports. You allowed our colonies to be attacked. You let our people die." Images appeared behind him. The destroyed colony. Delta 7. Burning structures. Empty streets. Silence. The leaders watching the message could not look away. "This is the result of your inaction," Daniel said. A few leaders shifted uncomfortably. "You called us weak," he continued. "You assumed our patience was a lack of power." Daniel's eyes focused directly on the viewers. "You were wrong." The screen changed. Data appeared, fleet movements, system control, signal interference. "We did not act without reason," Daniel said. "We did not act without warning." Another pause. "We acted because you forced us to." In the council, a leader finally spoke, his voice shaking slightly. "Humanity, this is extreme. You have taken control without proper approval." Daniel responded without hesitation. "Approval was given when we joined this council," he said. "Respect was given when we followed your laws." His voice grew slightly stronger. "You broke that agreement first." Silence filled the room. No one argued, because no one could deny it. Back on Earth, Armin watched the message carefully. "You are not just sending a message," he said quietly. Daniel nodded. "No. You are changing how they see us." Daniel looked at him. "They already see us differently." Far across space, leaders were reacting in shock. "They prepared this," one said. "For years," another replied. "They were never weak." A third voice finished the sentence. "They were waiting." Back on the screen, Daniel's message continued. "We are not here to destroy you," he said. "That is not our goal." A small pause. "But we will not allow this to continue." His voice was calm, but firm. "If you attack our colonies again, we will respond." The message was simple, clear, final. "Not with war," Daniel added. The room became tense. "Not with destruction," he continued. The leaders waited, holding their breath. Daniel finished his statement. "But with control." That word changed everything. Control. Not war. Not fear. Control. The message ended. The screens across the galaxy went dark. Silence returned. But this time it was different. Because now everyone understood something important. Humanity was not trying to become powerful. They already were. They were simply choosing how to use that power. Back on Earth, Armin exhaled slowly. "Do you think they will listen now?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He looked at the stars. "I think," he said finally, "they will think very carefully before they act again." Armin nodded slowly. "Good," he said. Because now the galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity had not changed. They had only stopped hiding what they could do. And that made them more dangerous than ever before. After the message from humanity, the galaxy entered a strange state. Fear had spread, but so had anger. Many species could not accept what had happened. For years, they had believed they were stronger, smarter, and more advanced than humans. Now that belief was broken, and some of them refused to accept it. In a large war council of one of the strongest factions, leaders gathered around a circular table. Their ships had been disabled before, but not all of them had been affected. Some still believed they could fight back. "We cannot let this stand," one leader said loudly. "They have taken control of too much." Another slammed his hand on the table. "We are a powerful species. We will not be controlled by humans." Others listened, thinking carefully. A younger officer spoke. "But their systems." "We know about their systems," the leader interrupted. "They control ships and routes. But they cannot control everything." The room became quiet. "That is why," the leader continued, "we strike at a place they cannot control." "What do you mean?" someone asked. The leader pointed to a star map. "Earth." Silence filled the room. "You are suggesting an attack on their home world?" an officer asked carefully. "Yes," the leader replied. "If we hit their center, their control will collapse." Another leader hesitated. "And if we fail?" "We will not fail," the leader said confidently. But deep down, doubt had already started to grow. Meanwhile, on Earth, Daniel and Armin were watching the same species. "They're preparing something," Armin said. Daniel nodded. "Yes." "Can they still fight back?" Armin asked. Daniel looked at the data carefully. "They will try." Armin frowned. "Even after everything?" Daniel replied calmly, "Especially after everything." Across the galaxy, fleets began to move. Large warships powered up. Weapons were activated. Ships gathered in formation. This was not a small action. It was a full attack. "Begin the operation," the leader ordered. The fleet moved toward human space. For the first time since the control began, they were not waiting. They were attacking. Inside one of the ships, a young officer looked at the screen. "We are entering human space," he said. "Any resistance?" another asked. "Not yet." The fleet moved forward confidently. At first, nothing happened. No signals. No messages. No interference. "See," the leader said. "They cannot stop us." But then, a warning appeared. "System fluctuation detected." "Ignore it," the leader ordered. Moments later, more warnings appeared. Energy instability increasing. Navigation drifting. "Stop reporting and continue forward." But the systems were no longer listening. Inside the fleet, things began to change. Weapons shut down. Engines slowed. Communication broke. "What is happening?" someone shouted. "We are losing control. This is impossible." The leader stood up quickly. "Maintain formation." But the formation was already breaking apart. On Earth, Daniel watched everything unfold. "They are attempting an attack," an officer said. Daniel nodded. "Yes." "Should we respond?" Armin asked. Daniel did not answer immediately. He watched the incoming fleet carefully. Then he spoke. "Activate defensive control." Across space, something changed. The fleet that had once moved with confidence suddenly stopped. Not because of explosions. Not because of destruction. But because their systems were being controlled again. Ships froze in place. Engines shut down. Weapons powered off. The entire fleet became motionless. "No, no," the leader whispered in disbelief. "This cannot be happening." On his screen, a message appeared. "You have entered restricted space." He stared at the message, his confidence fading completely. This is not control," he said quietly. "It is dominance." Back on Earth, Daniel spoke calmly. "They made their choice," he said. Armin looked at the screen. "And now?" Daniel's eyes were steady. "Now they understand." In the council, reports spread quickly. The attack failed. They lost control again. Humanity stopped them without even firing a shot. The fear grew deeper. But now, something else was also happening. Respect. Not given freely. Not accepted easily. But forced by reality. Back on Earth, Armin stood beside Daniel again. "They tried to attack us," he said. Daniel nodded. "And failed," Armin added. Daniel finally turned away from the screen. "Yes," he said. Armin took a deep breath. They underestimated us. Daniel's voice was calm. They did more than that. Armin looked at him. What do you mean? Daniel answered simply. They believed their arrogance was strength. A pause. But it was their weakness. Across the galaxy, the truth was becoming clear. Humanity had not only defended itself, it had shown the difference between power and control. And in that moment, something inside the galaxy changed forever. Because the ones who believed they were the strongest had just fallen without a single shot fired. After the failed attack, the galaxy became still. Not calm, just still. The strongest faction had tried to fight humanity and failed in a way no one expected. Their fleets were stopped, their systems controlled, and their confidence destroyed. Now every species was watching, waiting, and fearing what would come next. On Earth, the command center was busier than ever. Reports were coming in from every region of space. Ships that had once ignored human authority were now asking for instructions. For the first time, humanity was not being ignored. Daniel stood in front of a large table where a group of officers and advisors were gathered. Armin stood beside him. This is the moment, Armin said quietly. Daniel nodded. Yes. Are we going to destroy them? Armin asked. Daniel shook his head slightly.
No.
Armin looked at him carefully. Then what are we going to do? Daniel turned toward the screen. We're going to build a system, he said. A system? Armin repeated. Yes, Daniel replied. A new order. Across the galaxy, leaders received another transmission from humanity. This one was different. It was not a warning. It was not a threat. It was a set of rules.
Clear.
Simple. Final. On the screen, Daniel appeared again. From this moment forward, he said, all species that wish to operate in human-controlled regions must follow these rules. The council members watched in silence. Rule 1 appeared. No unprovoked attacks on civilian colonies. Rule 2. All ships must respect designated borders. Rule 3. Any act of aggression will result in immediate system control. The rules continued. Each one was clear and strict. No confusion. No debate. No exceptions. In the council, a leader spoke carefully. You are asking us to give up our independence. Daniel responded calmly. We are asking you to give up aggression. Another leader said, this is not cooperation. This is control. Daniel did not deny it. Yes, he said. Silence filled the room. But no one argued. Because everyone understood something now. Humanity was not asking. It was deciding. Back on Earth, Armin watched the reactions. They are not happy, he said. Daniel replied. They don't have to be. But will they accept this? Armin asked. Daniel looked at the screen again. They will accept reality. Far away, different species reacted in different ways. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were quietly relieved. Because for years, the galaxy had been unstable. Wars, attacks, and conflicts had spread everywhere. Now, something new was forming. Control. Order. Rules. In one system, a small species leader spoke to his people. If humanity can stop the powerful, he said, then maybe they can also protect the weak. His people listened carefully. For them, humanity was not an enemy. It was a chance for stability. Back on Earth, Daniel continued to monitor everything. Reports show a decrease in unauthorized attacks, an officer said. Good, Daniel replied. Another officer added, trade routes are stabilizing. Continue monitoring, Daniel said. Armin walked closer. So this is it? Daniel looked at him. Yes. The war is over? Armin asked. Daniel paused for a moment. Then he said, the fighting is. Armin understood what he meant. This was not the end of conflict. It was the beginning of something different. A controlled galaxy. A system where humanity had the final say. But not everyone saw it as a bad thing. In many parts of space, ships began to follow the new rules willingly. They did not want war. They did not want chaos. They wanted safety. And now they had a strong power ensuring that safety. Back in the command center, Daniel received one final report. It showed that most systems had accepted the new order. Armin read the report. They are adapting faster than expected. Daniel nodded. Good. Armin looked at him. Do you think they will ever challenge us again? Daniel thought for a moment. Then he said, some will try. And then? Armin asked. Daniel looked at the stars. Then they will learn again. The room became quiet, because now everyone understood something important. Humanity was not ruling through fear alone. It was ruling through results, through action, through control. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The era of chaos was ending, and a new order had begun. One where humanity was no longer asking for permission. They were setting the rules. The galaxy had changed completely. What once felt like a place full of conflict, power struggles, and endless battles had now become something else. Not perfect, not peaceful, in the way some dreamed, but stable. And at the center of that change stood humanity. On Earth, life continued, but it was not the same as before. Cities were still active. People still worked, learned, and lived their lives. But now, there was a quiet awareness in every home, every station, every ship. Everyone knew the truth. Humanity was no longer just another species among many. They were the force that kept everything in balance. In the command center, Daniel stood by the large window once again. The stars stretched across the dark sky, endless and calm. Armin walked in and stood beside him. Everything is quiet now, Armin said. Daniel nodded slowly. For now. Armin smiled slightly. You always say that. Daniel looked at him. Because it is true. There was a short silence between them. Then Armin asked, do you think they understand now? Daniel watched the stars carefully. Some do. And the others? They will, Daniel replied. Far away, across different regions of space, ships followed the new order. Trade routes were open again, but only under strict rules. Colonies were safe, but protected by systems no one could bypass. The galaxy was not free in the old sense, but it was safer. In one quiet system, a young officer looked at a transmission from Earth. This is the third time they have checked our system, he said. His captain nodded. And the third time they have protected us. The young officer thought about it. They control everything, he said. The captain looked at him and replied, no, they control only what needs to be controlled. Back on Earth, Daniel received a final report. It showed that no major species had tried to break the new rules again. At least not openly. Armin looked at the data. They are learning. Daniel nodded. Yes. Do you think they respect us now? Armin asked. Daniel thought for a moment. They fear us less, he said. And respect us more. Armin raised an eyebrow. That sounds better. Daniel gave a small, rare smile. It is enough. Outside, the world moved forward. But in space, the impact of humanity's actions remained clear. No species forgot what happened. They remembered the moment when everything changed. They remembered the silent ships that stopped without a fight. They remembered systems shutting down without explanation. And most of all, they remembered that humanity did not respond with rage. They responded with control. Years passed. The galaxy slowly adapted. New alliances formed. New agreements were made. And human influence became part of the structure of the galaxy itself. Not as rulers in the traditional sense, but as protectors of balance. One evening, Armin stood again beside Daniel. The galaxy is different now, Armin said. Daniel nodded. Yes. And it all started because we stayed patient, Armin added. Daniel looked at him. Patience was not the beginning, he said. Armin frowned slightly. Then what was? Daniel turned back to the stars. Patience was the warning. A quiet moment passed. And when that warning was ignored? Armin asked. Daniel's voice was calm. Everything changed. In that moment, the truth became clear once again. Humanity had never been the weakest. They had only chosen when to act. They had watched, learned, and waited. And when the galaxy pushed too far, they showed what they were capable of. Not through destruction, not through chaos, but through control, precision, and patience that no one could match. The legacy of humanity was not just power. It was restraint. And that restraint was more dangerous than any weapon in the galaxy. As the stars continued to shine above Earth, one thing remained certain. No species would ever forget what happened. And no species would ever again mistake humanity's patience for weakness. Because when humanity's patience ended, everything changed.